Hi everyone, my name is Grace Farrow. I am a Solid Edge application engineer here at Prolim, and today we're going to be taking a look at Solid Edge technical publications. So the first thing we're going to take a look at is, what are technical publications? Also known as tech pubs. We're going to be taking a look at the features, and then I'm going to be giving a demonstration. So we can see here on the picture below that we are going to be working inside Solid Edge 2020. And we're going to be using two tools inside the Tools tab. It's the Illustrations and the 3D Publishing. So what are technical publications? So when we look at the assembly below on the left-hand side, basically, the goal is to have the ability to clearly communicate the correct manufacturing, installation, and maintenance procedure for our designs or the assembly below. So it is essential to the performance of your products and the success of your business. So by using that Solid Edge Technical Publication Solutions, your designers can quickly create many types of technical documents. So the software is seamlessly integrated with the Solid Edge software. So this allows you to work directly with your Solid Edge parts and assemblies, and eliminates the needs to convert computer-aided design or CAD files to a different format. So going still in that, what are technical publications? So it's useful for easy and powerful creation, so we can create instructions and catalogs faster. Graphics are based on 3D, which are easier to understand. We also have seamless document updates, so design changes are no problem. We're going to take a look at what that means in just a second. And then no more running back and forth between departments. We also have time-saving features such as the Smart Template technology. Using our configurations in our larger assemblies. We also have multiple modes, which imports our multiple 3D CAD files into a single multiple page document. So some features. So Solid Edge Technical Publications is a powerful tool that enables you to streamline your documentation process with time-saving features for rapidly creating and updating documents. So instructions or product catalogs, including 3D graphics, can be created faster and help to reduce costly mistakes. So in our old process, we would have to finish our design completely and then start creating our documentation. Now that we can integrate our files into our documentation, we can start that documentation process so much sooner while we are still in the thought process of creating our overall design. So Solid Edge 3D Publishing is a bundled product that also includes Solid Edge illustrations. We saw those on the first page with the agenda. So both products include Solid Edge design and drafting functionality. So we can see here kind of the differences for our 3D tools and our printing options. So now we're going to go ahead and get started on our demonstration. So here I have a sewing machine assembly. This is the example we are going to use. And the tools that we're going to use are our illustrations and our 3D publishing. So kind of just a few differences about those that was on the last slide that we looked at is, so for illustrations, there's a single page template for the interactive PDFs, while the 3D publishing has entire multi-page document and it publishes those to PDFs. There are just like a few slight differences. The working file format for the illustrations is QSM, while the Solid Edge document or the QSD is for the Solid Edge 3D publishing. And then so illustrations is the type of output is more of the technical illustrations, while the 3D publishing is more of the technical documentation. For this example, we are going to be looking at the 3D publishing for the most part. So all I'm going to do is just select that from within Solid Edge, and it's going to bring up our Solid Edge 3D publishing. So we have the Solid Edge 3D Publishing pulled up. We are in the new document wizard because we had opened that up from Solid Edge. So we are going to go ahead and look at the type of documents we have here, right? So we have instructional documents, presentations, printed catalogs, proposals, work instructions. And if we go down to single page, we also have, HD landscaping, portrait documents here. We do have the capability of importing custom templates as well, but for this example, we will be working out of the stock folders. So for this example, we are going to be working with the work instructions HD. Okay, so it's going to provide us, if we hit the arrows, so a title page, table of contents, bill of material, stuff like that. So these buttons can be used to kind of see the pages with your catalogs. There are some more advanced options down here, but now I'm going to let it finish and do its thing. So here is the 3D publishing with our work instructions. You can see that it kind of has the same feel as Solid Edge with the tabs up top and everything, like a lot of Windows softwares. But the first thing I want to point out is this view down here is a little crazy, so we're going to just fix that out right off the bat. On the Home tab on the far right, we have a viewpoint group. This helps for all of the view changes, right? So we have zoom, rotate, pan, home. I'm going to drop this down to front. Drop that down. I'm going to go to custom. You can kind of see more of the options here on the left-hand side, kind of like a tab, like Solid Edge pulls up a tab. And this is where you have more advanced options. But I am going to go ahead and just go with isometric and just zoom a little bit in here with my mouse wheel. Okay. So since I have that done, the next thing I want to look at is editing the page, right? So it's actually very easy. On the Home tab in the Select group, we have an Edit Page button. This gives us the ability to not only edit our 3D isometric view in here, but also the text we have. So maybe I want to update this to a more relevant name. So instead of work instructions, I just come in here and I'm going to say motor replacement. And once I do that, and obviously it has word and spell check, and once I do that, I can just left click on the border and left click to get out in the space. And then I can hit escape or click on edit page again up at the top to get out of it. So I'm just going to go ahead and just exit out of that viewpoint real quick, kind of like Solid Edge again. So the next part of this, we are going to add a few illustrations. Okay, so I'm going to go up to the Illustrate tab, come over here to Select, drop this down, and I'm going to go to the New Storyboard. And basically what a storyboard does is it holds those illustrations or those texts between each illustration, so we can actually go between pictures and save different text and different images for each picture. Okay, so for this storyboard, I'm going to name it Cover Page. So up here at the top, we can say Cover Page, and we can add a description if we want to, but I'm just going to leave it blank and say OK. So you can see that nothing really pulled up after we did that. What we have to do next is, next to the Select group is the Show button. So we're going to show that, and down here at the bottom it's going to have the storyboard come up. And we can see that there's nothing here because we don't have any new illustrations, right? But we will be creating a new illustration, and it's kind of going to give us this pop-up window like last time when we were creating the storyboard. But the first illustration is going to show us how, that we need to power off and unplug the unit. We can insert this at the end of the storyboard. We can edit markups now or change the illustration size. So we are going to leave the edit markups now turned on, and basically that's just going to give us the ability to update our illustration right now. So once I hit OK, in the left hand corner you're going to see that we have a new illustration here, right? And we can actually come over to the right hand side, see the name. We can enter in a more descriptive explanation for this if we want to really get into it, but I think the name pretty much covers it. We just want everybody to be safe, so we need to unplug the unit first. So you can see we're kind of in an edit mode. So up here in the top you see we're in edit mode, and what we're going to do is we're going to actually add an image, right? So in this illustration tools there's a drop down for images here. These are just stock images, right? You can add your own custom images in here. But for now, we are just going to kind of scroll down here, grab one of these guys, and I'm just going to basically left click and drag to have that show up. We can move it, we can right click, we have all these options, again to move, rotate, flip, change the image, set the transparency. We can also go into properties down here and update the color. So this is the power turning off, so I want this to stand out a little more, right? So I'm going to make this red and kind of move it up over here. And that's perfect. That's just where I want it to be. So now that we have our illustration where we want it, I'm going to close out of these properties. And to finish this, all we have to do is come up to the green check mark, kind of like a sketch in Solid Edge, and say close the editor. And now we can see that our illustration is done in the left-hand corner, right? We're no longer in edit mode. So now what we want to do is we want to create a new illustration, and that's going to show, to take the back cover off as our first step, basically. So to do this, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the view. Again, going into the viewpoint, dropping that down. And the one I'm going to pick for this is this top back right face of the model. So because I want the back cover to be removed first, I am going to just left click on this back cover and it will automatically highlight that for me. And so now we can go down to the bottom again and create a new illustration, right? And this is going to be remove back cover. I am going to still have the edit markets now, and I'm going to say OK. So I do want to add another illustration in here, and I'm going to zoom back out of this just a little bit, but we are going to add an arrow to represent the fact that the back cover needs to be taken off. And one of the tools that's really helpful for this is this grid drop down right here. So this is the orientations that you can have the grid. This XZ, if we give that a little demonstration, that's not going to help us, obviously, but it's just nice to see all the different grid layouts you can have. And you can even position your grid if you want to move that up a little bit. Okay, so now when we come and select our image, like this arrow, and we come down to our grid again, I left click and drag, it's going to be on that same grid location, that same orientation. So once we're done with that illustration, and we've added that, we can just click the green check mark. And we can see that that is now done as well. I'm going to go ahead and exit out of that viewpoint. So since we have created our two illustrations, now we need to create a toggle that lets us go back and forth between these two. And we know if we click the arrow down here, it's just going to take us to the next page. So what we really need is to insert some sort of table, right? So if we drop this table down, this parts table, we do have something that's called an illustration table. A parts table is kind of like a bill of material, right? But an illustration table will let you come in here, create a box out here. It's going to interact with the 3D views, yes. storyboard. We only have one storyboard, so it's just going to automatically select that, and I'm going to say OK. And then I am going to go ahead and exit out of this edit page. And now you can see as I toggle between the two of these, it's going to toggle between those two illustrations that we created for our cover page. And just like anything that you can edit on this page, I know I exit out of the edit page, but if we actually go back in here and we select that illustration, again, we can move this. We can update the font size if we want to. We can change the colors. There's a lot of different effects that you can change in here, but it's just like editing anything else on the page. So since we have that created, we are going to move on to the next couple pages. So the next page, page 2, again is a table of contents, but the page after that is instructions, right? And I'm going to zoom out of this. Again, this just has a kind of funky view, so I'm going to go ahead and just change that real quick. Zoom out a little bit. There's just an automatic view from the template that we selected. And in this case, we are going to show the exploded view and how to take this apart in the correct way and all of the steps that come with that. So it is good to note that if you already have an exploded view in Solid Edge, you can just use that one. But we are going to create this from scratch inside the 3D Publishing. So to do this, our first step is going to go to the Model tab. And in the Model tab, you can see we have this Exploded Views button. If we actually drop that down, we would be able to see our exploded views in here. We don't have any, so we're going to go ahead and go to New Exploded View. So I'm going to update this name to Motor Removal and then say OK for a new exploded view. And we can see that the Move Parts is already highlighted, but I am going to update that viewpoint. So we can see that it is in the model as well as the Home tab. It's pretty much always at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and go to Custom, and I'm going to go back to that top back right. So now that I have the correct orientation for removing those, I am going to drop down that Exploded Views again, and I'm going to go to the Exploded View panel. And you can see on the left-hand side, that exploded view, it's going to kind of show up like a tree. And again, this is kind of like Solid Edge. I do have my tabs down here for my viewpoint as well as my exploded view. So our Move Parts was automatically turned on when we started our exploded view. And the drop down underneath is what gives us the orientation of the axis that we want to move these by. So I have by object, by point, by face, or smart. For this example, starting off, I am going to do by face, and I'm going to select that back cover. And we can see that that arrow of the orientation is normal to that back cover, so I can just left click and drag to pull that off. So we can see in our tree that pulling out that back cover was our first step. And now I'm going to zoom in here, kind of pan this down a little bit so we can see the motor more. We don't have to make sure that our cover is necessarily fitting in here. We're going to make that disappear through each step. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to start pulling out all of these components that is attached to this motor, right, to help with this exploded view. So I'm going to go back to my Move Parts, and I'm going to select the fan first. And we can see that the by face might not be the best option for this fan. So I can go ahead and do Smart and just let the system figure it out for me. So I'm just going to left click, pull that fan out, and then on the left hand side we can see step 2. So I'm just going to keep this on Smart and keep selecting my parts. So the next is the belt, pull that off. Oop. And if I don't want to click it, I can just click the next thing that I want to click. So I accidentally clicked some of the framework back here, but I actually wanted to click the gear. So I can just click the gear, pull that out. The next thing I might want are these screws. If I want to get both at the same time, because there's one at the top and one at the bottom, I can just hold in Control, select both of them, and bring both of those out. And then I can do the same thing for the washers. But the next thing I want to do is I actually want to get this whole motor to come out all together. And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to go up to this model panel up top. And basically it's going to be like our Pathfinder in Solid Edge. And I'm just going to select the subassembly that is that motor. And then I can just pull that out all together. You do have a lot of freedom with these exploded views though. If we go up to remove parts and drop that down, we do have the ability to rotate parts, scale parts, radial move parts, right? So it's not just necessarily just moving those specific parts, which gives us a lot of freedom using this 3D publishing tool. So since we have this finished, we're just going to go ahead and close the editor once again, right? And we want all of these parts in this exploded view to all be one illustration. So what we're going to do is go to our Illustrate tab, go to our Select, and we're going to go to our Storyboard Wizard this time instead of just saying New Storyboard. And it actually makes it really easy because now we have the ability to actually just select our exploded view, right? And what I want to do is I want to make sure that the selected parts being assembled are shown, are highlighted. I also want to say hide those unassembled parts. So if we have some running together or anything, or the back cover being a little too big, it's not going to draw away the attention of those individual parts coming out and being exploded. And then I'm also going to say do not change viewing position, just to make it a little easier to see. So once I hit finish, it's going to create all of the illustrations down here at the bottom, kind of like last time. So we can switch between these steps if we want to with our illustrations. So I am going to create something kind of like a step 0, which is going to be everything all together. So if I go back into my exploded view and go to motor removal, and I'm also going to kind of put this more in the middle. I'm going to go ahead and go down to new again, create that new illustration, and I'm going to make this motor removal steps. I do have the option of either putting it at the end of the storyboard or before the current illustration or after the current illustration. I'm going to show you guys how to move it from the back anyway. So I'm going to say OK. And it's going to put it at the last step, like I mentioned before. And if I want to de-highlight it from in there, I just come in there, select that part. So now I'm just going to left click and drag this down all the way till it's at the very first one. So as we go through these steps, as I select step 1, you can see that the name correlates with the name up here. So we can edit that if we want, or we can enter in a new description like I talked about before. So maybe remove this during this step, right? And this is step 1. So as we go through this, we actually have these toggles up here that show exactly what's happening and what's changing. So as soon as we hit this close the editor, and we can go through this and see exactly what's changing. Obviously we can edit again the name and the description down below. So if I wanted to go to the beginning or the end, I do have these buttons up here at the top. So if I want to go back to the beginning, I just hit that far left button. It'll bring me back to that motor removal steps. So we are going to go to the next slide, And the next slide actually has an interactive parts list. And for this parts list, we can see that if we highlight or select any of these, it will highlight in our assembly. So we can see here, I have this part selected. There are two of them. We can see the two knobs are highlighted. So again, this is just a really powerful tool, another really powerful tool in 3D publishing. At the bottom, I do want you to notice that this is actually our default storyboard for this slide, for this section, right? And these are actually the configurations that we had inside Solid Edge. And just for time's sake purposes, again, I'm not going to go ahead and explode all of the parts in this assembly so that we can see all of the parts that are selected, but I am going to create a button that is going to go through all of these configurations for us to see. So I'm going to go up to Insert, and in Graphics, again, I have that ability to select images, but I also do have this button at the top. Okay, so this is a button wizard. And once I select that and draw an area, this button tool can give me the ability to switch between my configurations. Okay, so I can say, change view mode. We can create a hyperlink to the web. We can create an illustration change. I'm going to say place storyboard. So it's going to kind of play out like a movie. It's going to go between every piece in the storyboard, and it's not going to stop. But I am going to play the storyboard. I'm going to say default, right? Because this is the default storyboard that's selected. I'm going to create this button. I can modify the text in here. There's another way as well, but I am going to change this to configurations and say create button. And now we can see up here at the top that this button was created. I'm going to kind of open this up a little bit. We are in edit page, by the way. That's why everything's kind of looking like a grid back here. And I can right click and edit these properties, kind of like last time. Maybe change the color so it's a little easier to see with this background. I also have the ability, if I right click over here, to change the actions for the properties, right? So we can go back in here and change that storyboard again if we need to. Maybe you created another storyboard, so you can always do that. So a lot of just different options, different ways to do this. But as soon as I come out of this edit page, and I'm just going to select that button, and it's going to play through those configurations. You can see down here at the bottom, it's just going to keep going. We'll let it run all the way through. So you can see we got to that last illustration. So I'm just going to bring us back to the original one. If you ever want to see what configurations you do have, up at the top there is a configurations tab, and we can drop this down and see all of our different configurations. Our exploded views will also be in here for our different configurations. But we are going to go ahead and go to the next page. And we see here that this is another parts list, and maybe we don't want to have this. It's a little redundant. So we can go to our Home tab, come to Project, go to Pages. We could just right click and delete this page. So our 6 turns into 5. And now we have our general instructions and our safety instructions. And these are just text boxes, so we can go in here and edit this page and edit these text boxes to anything we want them to be. We also have the ability to add a new page as well as add page templates. So Might take a second. But here are our document templates. We can also duplicate, delete pages. We can look at the property panels. And now that we have our document fully created, just how we want it, we can go up to the Publishing tab up top. And here we can either print this out, which wouldn't be very helpful because it's an interactive document. We could save this as a PDF, we could email a PDF, or we can create an HTML5 document. We can give it the file name, say OK. This does take probably about 10 to 15 seconds, and then it'll pull up on a regular modern day browser. Again, so Google Chrome, Firefox, whatever browser you use. So I did pull up our HTML file that was created. Again, it is interactive, right? All of our other pages are interactive that we displayed. And this is just a really powerful, really intuitive tool, right? And this can save a lot of time and energy for engineers. We can start that documentation process way sooner in the design scope, which in the long run saves time and money. So that's all I have to show you today. Thank you again for coming to my Technical Publications webinar. My name is Grace Farrow, again a Solid Edge Application Engineer here at Prolim. And if you'd like to rewatch this video, it is going to be on our YouTube page at Prolim. And you should subscribe and get the latest information on all product lines, but definitely on Solid Edge. Thank you.